If you give it to the church, you don't need to support your parents. Give it to the church. It is so subtle, so sophisticated, built up with all manner of tradition. Luke 20:46. Beware of the scribes who devour widows' houses and for a pretense make long prayers. They eat widows' houses. So, what Jesus saw in the temple was not an isolated thing. Little, questionable worship support ministry. It was the outworking of greed, cloaked with religion. This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. In vain are they worshiping me. Matthew 15:8. My Father is not being worshipped here. Money is being worshipped in my Father's house. Jesus came into the world. Why? To display the infinite worth of his Father and to vindicate his Father's honor and to free us from the killing effects of the love of money. Let me say that again. Jesus came into the world to display the infinite value and preciousness of his Father and to vindicate the honor of his Father and to free us through that from the killing effects on ministries and churches and marriages and souls of the love of money. So, how do they respond to this? How did those folks to whom he just took a whip on the animals and on the people and drove them out with rage in his eyes, how are they responding to this? Here's what they say. This is verse 18. So the Jews said to him, "What sign do you show us for doing these things?" That's all they say. And the story's going to be over. They won't say anything else. What sign do you show us for doing these things? That's not an encouraging response. Why? Because in asking for a sign, they are confirming what they're hiding. Why do I think that? It happened before. It happened several times. I'll read you one of them. Matthew 12:38 goes like this. Some of the scribes and Pharisees answered him, "Teacher, we wish to see a sign from you." But he answered them, "An evil and adulterous generation seeks for a sign." He's not encouraged by this response. So the question is, what's so evil? What's so adulterous? Adulterous in asking for some proof. If you presume to have some authority here and some rights to drive us out of the temple, then prove who you are. The reason Jesus is so displeased with that response is because when they ask it, it's a dodge. It's a trick. It's a ploy. It's slick. It's spin. They don't need more signs to prove what's true. They need hearts to love what they know is true. If you've lived a while and you're observant of people, news, you know that people, including yourself and me, are pretty adept at deflecting the issue off of our hearts, where the real problem is, onto a theoretical problem. You want a big word? An epistemological problem. How do you know what's true here? And Jesus looks right through them over and over again and says, you don't need more evidence. Your asking for evidence is trying to justify your spiritual adultery. You got another boyfriend. That's why you're asking me for proof that I'm your husband. You know I'm your husband. You got another boyfriend. It's called money. That's why I call this generation adulterous. An adulterous generation asks for a sign. They're in love with another paramour. And they're covering the affair with issues of, we can't be sure of this. It's not the issue. It's not the issue. Ask some people in this church that I could name who've walked away from God on the vaunted basis of not being sure with their brains and come back years later saying, that wasn't the issue. I just wanted out of here to do my own thing. And I used philosophy in order to justify it. We all have done it. Jesus doesn't like it. Thank God. So how does Jesus respond to their response? He says, show us a sign. We want a sign. He goes with them. Only his answer is doubled. It's a layered answer. Over and over in this gospel he does this. It's a layered answer at one level and another level. So I'm going to try to listen in on both levels, and you listen with me. They ask, verse 18, what sign do you show us for doing these things? And here's what he answers in verse 19. Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I'll raise it up. And they respond, it's taken 46 years to build this temple, and will you raise it up in 3 days? So they did speak again. I misspoke earlier and I said they didn't speak again. That's it. 46 years, they've been working on this temple. You say, destroy it, I'll build it in 3 days. And then John comments, verse 21, but he was speaking about the temple of his body. So here's the way I think he's answering. They say, give me a sign. Give us a sign. And he says, level one, you are destroying the temple. This temple. This temple. When you desecrate the worship of my Father with your whitewashed greed, you destroy the temple and you expose it to the wrath of God. And the wrath came 40 years later, and every stone was lowered when the Romans destroyed the temple. They destroyed the temple. Destroy this temple. So that's level one. You do what you do, and you are bringing down the wrath of God on this building and court, because this is a destruction of worship, and that's what this house is for. Level two. That same materialistic, hard-hearted indifference to spiritual reality will kill me. There's a perfect continuity with your destruction of worship in the temple and your destruction of me. I and the Father are one. Destroy his worship,